All right. We're on 1 Corinthians 14:6. We're on the tongue speaking section, and we're going to get into some interesting points on tongue speaking. Okay. So, any questions about what we covered last week? Anybody? All right. So, he says prophesying is greater than tongue speaking unless there's an interpreter. I think if there was an interpreter, the tongue speaking would probably be pretty much on par with uh, the prophesying, because it might include prophesying, but it didn't always include prophesying. It might just include being able to translate for someone else, like a translator. So that would be not as high up on the scale of importance. If, however, you're in a foreign country and they can't speak English, somebody has to translate for you. So that becomes critical then. And I think that was the point of verse 5. All right, verse 6. Well, let's see. We just got two here, Chris, and I don't know who I started with last week, but I'm going to pick on James this week. Start. I think Chris started last week. James, could you do verse 6 for us, please?
Yes, sir. Nuni de adelphoi eon eltho pros humas glossais lalonti humas ophaleso eon me humin valeso e en apocalu lupse en gnose en prophetea en didacte. And I translated that. And now, brethren, if I may come to you speaking in a language, what will it profit you if I might not speak to you in a revelation or in knowledge or in a prophecy or in a teaching?
So it won't profit you unless I speak by revelation, knowledge, or prophesying, or by doctrine, by teaching, rather. So in the early church, revelation would have to be something that what office would be revealing information? What miraculous office?
Prophet?
It has to be a prophet, I think. And of course, the apostles were also prophets, but so it will be a prophet. Knowledge. Now, the gift of knowledge might fit in almost with revelation, but might we have or by prophesying or by doctrine or by teaching. I think there was a difference in some of these things. Having knowledge of things. This might be miraculous knowledge of something that's going to happen. That knowledge. Notice it's gnosis. It's elementary knowledge. So it's not epignosis. So it's not a deeper knowledge. And this is the word that's translated revelation here. And apocalypse is how the several religious groups have named the book of Revelation. They uncover something. So what shall I profit? I'm not going to profit unless I reveal to you. If I just spoke in tongues and I got up and spoke fluent Mandarin Chinese to you, I bet none of you except James could understand Mandarin Chinese. Is that right, James?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you've studied Mandarin, haven't you?
Yes, sir, I have.
Okay. So everybody else, if you spoke it, we just be gibberish to us. Not that it would be gibberish. I mean, it could be a very good lesson. And so that I think that's his point here. If you studied and spoke in a language nobody understood, then you're not communicating. You're not revealing anything to the people. You may be revealing it, and God may understand what you said if you did it by miraculous means, but the audience wouldn't understand it, and they wouldn't know anything, and your prophesying wouldn't be any good because they wouldn't understand it, and your teaching wouldn't be any good. It wouldn't accomplish anything good. Not that it wouldn't be good at what you taught if it was done miraculously. So I think he's laying out, trying to get them to see this is all about we want to edify the church, and they're not going to be edified if they don't understand what's said. And that gets into something for if you're a preacher or a teacher, you need to be well aware that sometimes if you use big words, when a 25-cent word, I call it, when a 5-cent word would do the same job, maybe you just need to cut it down a bit. Use some 5-cent words. Make sure the audience understands what you're saying. And so be careful of that. And of course, we could be kind of arrogant, and that our arrogance cause us to kind of display our learning by using big 25-cent words too. All right. And of course, I'm not saying, I hope that none of us have that problem. Okay. Any questions? So if I do speaking with tongues, what shall it profit? What profit is going to be to you unless, and so this is aeon may. Aeon is if, unless. It's actually, it's an if, and may is not. If I do not speak, it won't profit you if I do not speak to you either by the ways of revelation and so forth. Right? All of these things. Any comments there? Of these 4 things, they will edify the church. If the tongue's not understood, there won't be any edification. But now, brethren, if I come to you speaking with tongues, what shall I profit you if I do not speak to you either by way of revelation or by way of knowledge or by way of prophesying or of teaching? Now, Chris, can you do verse 7?
Okay. Homos ta apsukia, apsychia, phone, didonta, eati, alos, eati, kithara, aeon, diastolane, tois, phathogos, phathogois, me, do, pos, gnosethesetai, to, aluminon, to, kitherizomenon. Okay, I have nevertheless, things without life producing sound, whether a flute, or you could put pipe, whether harp, except they give a distinction in musical sound they produce, or played on a harp or lyre.
Okay. So all of these things, the sound of them, they have a distinctive sound, and there's something conveyed by it. Now, you deliver a message, and there's a message from sounds. Each one has its own sound. It says they give a distinction in the sounds. Every sound is different. It accomplishes a different impact upon the mind of the people hearing them. So if we take the pipes,
I've lost your sound.
Okay, you're not hearing me?
I got you there.
Okay. If we have different sounds, now I translate even things without life giving a tone, whether pipe or harp, if they do not make a distinction in the sound, such shall be known what is piped or harped. So even a sound of a harp or a pipe, a flute or whatever, they sound differently and they have a different sound, and they have a different impact in the music, for example. If the harp or pipe do not make a distinctive sound, should not be heard. If they don't make a distinctive sound, they shouldn't be heard. Then a man's voice that does not make a distinction, a distinctive sound is not understood, should not be heard. So he's saying here, if these things that don't make a distinctive sound, then you're not going to be listening to them. And you shouldn't be. You shouldn't have to listen to them. And we shouldn't have to listen to someone that gets up and speaks and we don't understand anything he says. I think when we can see some of our Pentecostal neighbors with their so-called tongue speaking, they claim nobody can understand it. Now someone will claim to be an interpreter of it, and but if you record one of them and then have several of them to interpret, they'll back away from it. And they won't interpret if they know it's been recorded, and some other of their brethren in the Pentecostal groups are supposed to interpret it, because they won't give the same interpretation. It's just gibberish. But even if it's not gibberish, if it's a language, if I got up and spoke some language that nobody understood, and I spoke it, then the audience didn't understand a word I said. I just wasted my time. If I lectured for 30 minutes, it was 30 minutes of wasted time. And if there's 100 people in the audience, there's 100 times 30 is 3,000 minutes of wasted time. I've wasted that much time per person overall. That's a total waste. And if you don't interpret, and you're not going to interpret, then don't be speaking it. And so you need to be very careful about using the Greek too much in your preaching or teaching. Use it in your study so that you'll have the truth and know you have the truth, but don't be quoting it all that time. And once in a while, it's not bad to tell them the word and then use it in your meaning and lay it out for them. For instance, like phone, our English word phone, telephone, and microphone would come from it. And you could tell them something like that. This is a word for voice or sound. So, but be careful about getting too much overload on it. Who shall prepare himself if it's not understood, it's uncertain, it's not clear, then who's for war? Now, in the times of that period of time, they would use bugles to tell the army where to go. I remember when I was in the Navy, they had reveille in the morning when they told you to get up. The very first night, I didn't know that was going to happen, but about 5 o'clock in the morning, they put reveille real loud through the barracks. And I was on the bottom bunk, and there's a metal bunk above me, and I just jumped up and bumped my head and had a big knot on my forehead. The very first, after the first night, it's really the second day. And so that was to tell you to wake up. And of course, taps is telling you to go to sleep, and they play that when you bury someone as well. But the old bugles would tell the troops which way to go. They'd have a signal to tell them to go to the right or to the left or advance or retreat. Okay? So the bugler had a whole lot of things he would have to have. So And a lot of times at football games, they'll play charge. The bugle is to play the charge. The bugle would have for charging, advancing. Now, if a trumpet give an uncertain sound, he shall prepare himself for war. Or even if a trumpet gives an uncertain tone, who shall prepare himself for war? That's how I translated it.
Yeah, we were on verse 7, and I apologize. I skipped a line when I transcribed it about how will it be known, the distinction on there. When I transcribed that, I left that out when I read that to you.
Okay. All right. So there's my translation of verse 7. Okay, we're ready for verse 8. I went through verse 8 just then. Sorry about that. Do verse 8 for us, please.
Yes, sir. Hagar and Adelon Phonain, Solipits, Peaks, Do, Tis, Paras Scuacetai, Ace Polemon. And I translated this, for even if the trumpet gives an indistinct sound, who will prepare himself for war?
Okay. Again, I've already done my treatment on that. I got down to the next verse. I'm sorry. So the trumpet, particular sound for the troops. I'm told that one of the Napoleon's generals, one of his trumpeters, main trumpeters, got shot. A stray bullet killed him. And his son was about 12 years old, and Daddy had been training him. And Napoleon wanted his troops to retreat. And so he told the boy to play retreat. He said, my daddy's only taught me advance. And he said, well, play that. And they won the battle. Okay. And he was prepared to retreat, but his father had been killed. And I read that somewhere that supposedly happened. That makes a good story. I don't know whether it's true or not, though. But anyhow, that supposedly did happen. Okay. Napoleon. For even if the trumpet gives an uncertain tone or sound, who shall prepare himself for war? Okay. Now, we need to think about this. The Jews had watchtowers, and they would have trumpets to play. If there's an army coming, they would have a sound for it. And the watchman was to sit in this tower and watch for the enemy coming. And so he could warn them that the enemy was some distance away. They didn't have tanks and stuff that could move 30 or 40, 50 miles per hour. They were troops. If they were walking troops, they could probably march with their armor. They're not going to march and be a dead run for a long period of time. So it's going to, if they can see an army coming 10 or 15 miles away from a watchtower, they can sound the trumpet, and the troops can get themselves ready, and the people can go to the city to get away behind the walls of the city to protect themselves. So again, the watchmen, and they had them in Israel with towers, watchtowers. Any questions there? At verse 9, back to, I think, Chris, if you will, Chris.
Yes. Utos kai homes de tes glosses ian me ius semon logon dote pos glossithe setai to lalumenon se es the gar ace era laluntes. I have in this manner, except you utter by tongue, except intelligible speech, how will it be known what is being spoken? For you will be speaking into the air.
See the word, next to last word? The airplane.
Era.
Originally, back when they were first invented, they spelled it A-E-R-O, A-E-R-O plane, aeroplane. And so they shortened it to just airplane. But it had this word, this next to the last word, has come into the English as aeroplane. That's what they were called originally. Probably in World War I, they labeled them as aeroplanes. Okay. So, in this manner, see, this is an adverb of manner because the os ending that tells you it's an adverb of manner. That's like our ly ending in English equivalent to it. It's an adverb of manner in English with an ly ending. So also, unless ye utter, just like the pipe and the harp and all, by the tongue, unless you do that in the same way as the pipe and the harp, unless you utter speech easy to understand. So the role of a teacher / preacher is to speak so that people can understand him and speak the truth and speak what as well as he can what the people need to hear. We have a disadvantage that over the apostles had an advantage over us because they didn't have to worry about what they're going to preach. The Holy Spirit guided them. But we have to study and we have to know the audience, know what they need. And that means knowing the congregation, knowing the audience that you're preaching or teaching to or teaching. So again, I think that means you need to be out and know the members, know what they need. That's just my evaluation of things. So how shall it be known what's spoken if he doesn't speak words easy to understand? Now this would mean if he gets what I call 25-cent words, and words that are so big that people have to get a dictionary to look them up. And if you speak above your audience, that could be a problem. And so you can have a problem there if they don't how shall it be known what is spoken if the words aren't understandable? For you will be speaking into the air, and just we call it in Oklahoma whistling into the wind. You're just whistling in the wind. It also means that if a teacher, preacher were to use big words, as I said here, they were English words, the audience didn't understand, he would just be speaking in the air. Any questions? So also you, unless you give by the tongue, speech easy to be understood. I shall be known what is spoken, and for you'll be speaking into the air. Okay. Just whistling in the wind. Okay. Okay. I think we're back to James again. I can't remember. So y'all kind of help me if I get it wrong. Please, if you would.
Yes, sir. Tosata e tukoi gene phonon estin en cosmo Paiuden autoon aphonon, excuse me. I translated this. Let's see, just a minute. If it happened to be so many languages are in the world and none silences itself.
Okay. So you took that singular verb, being verb here. So why did they translate it with the American Standard and King James as are? It's a plural verb. Is that a mistranslation? All right, no, it's not. I want to highlight what I want you to remember. We've been through this before, but it's something you can easily forget. It's an idiom of Greek that the neuter plural subject practically always has its verb in the singular. Why? Well, neuter things are frequently treated like a unit. you can have a sack of seed, and you could treat it in the singular sense. Okay. And yes, you could say, what did you purchase? I purchased a sack of seed. What did you pay for it? See, it is singular. And so the seed are treated in English like they're neuter. Okay. And so we have something that's neuter plural, practically always has this verb in the singular. So that's kind of something that'll kind of trip you up if you're not careful. Right? That's why they translate the King James American Standard as there are. It may be. Right? And that's the optative case, optative mood. And it's the second person singular as to optative.
Why is the optative? I made myself a note. I was going to ask when you were done discussing this, but I'll go ahead and jump in. Tukoi, I put why optative aorist? Isn't the optative generally a wish? And how do? Oh, go ahead.
And down here below, we'll see it. It's a strong contingency, the mood of possibility. So
yeah, it's further removed than a subjunctive.
It's ordinary form of a wish, but it's not the only usage of it. Most of the time, it's a wish. But so it's something that's really remotely possible. Okay.
Yeah, it's further removed than the subjunctive.
Yes.
How is that there in the translation?
It's possible, and it's a remote possibility. There are certain kinds of voices in the world, and are sounds, say, in the world, and none of them is without signification.
Yeah, what I'm not seeing is, and you almost have to know it's there to understand it to be there in a sense, but there are perhaps, would, in my mind, perhaps, to some degree clarify that.
Perhaps, but the word perhaps would be a bad word to use there.
Okay. But I struggled, and when I finished translating it on my own, I generally do that first, and then I go and look at what other people have done. And I went, I'm just not seeing it. I know the New American Standard used the word perhaps, but I didn't see it in a number of the other translations.
I translated it may be.
It may be, okay.
Might should have it might be.
Yeah, I left the.
Might be.
Yeah, that probably is better then. I left mine with if it happened to be, so many languages are in the world, to add that element of uncertainty.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, I thank you. That's helpful.
A little bit.
Yes, sir.
Now what Trent has to say about phone A, and he cites two different words. Phone A is one of them. This is phone A, and so folks, and by being the cry of a living creature, and phone A is just a sound of a living creature. So one is a cry, the other is a sound. Let me see. I think we just have phone A here. Yeah, phone A here. That's all we have. Yeah. There are, it might be. I'll change it to might be. I'm just going to save that way. Okay. Save it as might be. Right. Many kinds of voices in the world, none of them is without signification. It's not denying that it's the case, but there be different significations. Some languages may overlap, however. So there may be overlapping between languages. Some words in English are the same, almost the same words in other languages, a few other languages, because we picked up words from other languages. I know in Russian, the Russian word for tundra is tundra, the word tundra. barbary came from French, I believe. I think it's grassland in French. And so we have a lot of words we picked up from other languages, so there could be some overlap. Right?
If I get you to back up so I can look at your translation again for verse 10. And none of them is without signification. Okay. The Greek word, let's see. Auton. How are you translating that?
Of them.
Of them, okay. Of them, thank you. Okay, good enough. Yeah.
See, it's got the alpha privative on phone, basically. This is an alpha privative under signification. It's not a distinct sound, see. Right. All right, let's go to verse 11 and watch our, we got that. It's 11, if you would. I think we're back to Chris on this, but I can't remember.
Okay. Verse 11. Eon un me edo tain dunamin tes phones isamai to lelon le luntai barbos kai ho lelon in imoi barbaros. So I have, if then I do not know the meaning of the languages, I will be to the one speaking a barbarian, and the one who speaks a barbarian even me.
Okay. A barbarian to people that were Greeks, they kind of tolerated the Latin language, but everybody else was a barbarian. And if you look at it, it's barbaros. And barbar, and it just yeah. Kind of like we'd say yeah.
Okay.
It's just a bunch of gibberish, you know. So again, they were proud of their language. It was in Greek's good language, but they were proud of it, and so everybody else was a barbarian. So if therefore not, I don't know. See, this is to know in the mind. To the mind figures it out, the perception of the mind. And so perception is denoted by this word. And so if I know, if I don't know, if I do not know, and this is subjunctive mood perfect tense. I have not known and still do not know the power of the voice, or the meaning of the voice, of the sound voice. It shall be, as of the mind, to the one speaking, okay, that the one speaking is a barbarian. He, to me, he's a barbarian. And the one speaking unto me is a barbarian. So the one speaking is a barbarian, and the one speaking to me is a barbarian. Now, what's the difference in this word here, amoi, and just moi without an accent mark on it? What's the difference in that?
Moi is me, emoy is emphatic. I put even me on that one.
That is correct. And so what will happen is with moi, is enclitic also, it will lose its accent. Its accent will go with the word before it. But amoi is emphatic, even to me, see. But it's not, you don't see that in either the American Standard or King James. I don't know if any of the modern translations. It's hard to get that emphasis in there. And I don't know how to do it unless you just say, and to me, even me. Okay. And I don't like the word unto because in normally is not unto, but that's to me. I like that much better.
I put by. Is it okay to put by in place of in here?
Right? I think that's okay. He probably is trying to carry it to him though, more than by. But that's
Okay.
how. But technically, it could be by. That would be instrumental case. Right? So to me, a barbarian, I'd just put to me instead of unto. I like to reserve unto for ace and to within when I'm translating, but they notice they had unto in both King James American Standard. I don't know what the other translations did. If, then, or therefore. Now, see, this is a transition to a new thought, or at least a subdivision of what he's been talking about, away from something to something kind of new. I know not the meaning, I don't know the power. That's interesting when it says meaning. I don't know the power of the voice. A voice doesn't have any power if it's not understood. See? There's power in words. So I believe we can see that. There's power in words. I shall be, and this is first person singular, future, indicative middle, it's middle voice. I shall be to myself or by myself, to him that's speaking. And this is articular participle, which always functions as a pronoun followed by, in English, it should be translated in English as a pronoun followed by a relative clause. So the one speaking, that's how I translate it. He'd be a barbarian, right? And he, again, that's the articular participle. Notice your article, nominative case article. The one speaking will be a barbarian in me or to me. I went ahead and put to me. This, of course, is emphatic, as I've laid out here in Summers. So I translated, therefore, I will do not, if I do not know the meaning of this power of the voice, I shall be a barbarian to the one speaking, and the one speaking shall be a barbarian in relation to me. It's how I translated it. Right? So, just as well be gibberish. Right? That's how we probably say it. I would say this, even though he's dealing with tongue speaking, it still has application to us when we teach. I'll get back to don't use 25-cent words when a 5-cent word will accomplish the same result. All right? Now, if you had a group of guys in your audience and the whole audience was a bunch of PhD guys, you might use some 25-cent words, okay? But, just know your audience and don't shoot over them. Don't get above their heads. Make sure it's understandable to them, because your goal is not to impress them, but your goal is to edify them. At least I assume that's your goal. And I know you men, if I know you like I think I know you, all of you want to edify rather than impress. Any question? All right, verse 12. Now, Shane, if you want to jump in, we'll let you do it. Just I'm not trying to horn you out. So if you want to jump in, go ahead.
That's all right. I'm listening.
Okay. I think we're back to James again now.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Verse 12. Toutos kai humes, epe zelotai esta pneumaton prostain oikodomain, pes ecclesias zeteta hina perisun ete. And I translated this, thus, and you, since you are zealots of spiritual gifts, seek to the edification of the church in order that you may abound.
Okay. So you want the church to grow, and you want to grow in two ways. And what would the two ways you want to grow in? spiritually grow and numerically grow, add members to the church. But if you're preaching to the church, we have tried and we've done something that I think has not helped us. We have gotten to the point that we think that we ought to use the assembly to convert the sinners. And I think the assembly is primarily for edification of the church. Now, if people come and assemble and they are converted by the doctrine, the sermons that should be designed to build up the church, then that's a bonus. But a gospel meeting might be better suited for the conversion of the alien sinner. Our worship is for us, and if people come, that's okay. And hopefully they're going to learn. But our worship and the sermons in the worship should be to build up the church. And we may have sermons in there. The church might need to understand basic doctrine so that they can go out and teach the lost. And people of the world might be there and hear that basic doctrine and be converted by it. But the primary goal should be the edification of the members in the preaching in the local assembly. That's my conviction. And of course, if we think that the only way we're going to convert people is by bringing them into the assembly, and I think we're far limiting ourselves way too much. We need to go, to the people's homes and teach them, and of course, gospel meetings and other things like that can teach. But home Bible studies, correspondence courses, and other things of like nature. Anyhow, I've vented myself on this. I'm not saying it's wrong to have sermons that are going to convert the lost, but I think we're teaching fundamental principles so that the church will be built up in these fundamental principles, and outsiders come and hear them and are converted, and that's a bonus. But we want our brethren to be able to teach the lost themselves. You want to multiply yourself as a preacher so that you get as many people to be able to teach the lost as you can. I think the apostles did that when they sent people out and laid hands on them. I think you can see that in Acts 8. Philip went down to Samaria and preached. And what happened? People were baptized, but they hadn't received the Holy Spirit. They hadn't received miraculous gifts yet. The apostles came down, laid hands on them. Now these people can go out and teach. But that's exactly what we should be doing. We should get as many people built up so that we can multiply ourselves. And I've vented myself here. Any questions about that? Notice I'm not saying that the people of the world shouldn't be converted when they come in. We need to build up the church. And if we're in teaching fundamental doctrines, so a non-Christian is converted by that, that's just a bonus. That's icing on the cake. Okay. Ye, since ye are zealous. The word zealous is also the word for zealous. Okay, you're zealotes, you're a zealot. And you're zealous, it's a nominative plural, zealotes, it's one who's zealot. And he's zealous of spiritual gifts. There's nothing wrong with zeal. If it's for the right thing. If it's for the right thing. Zeal to do good is good. Desiring miraculous gifts for the right reason is or was a good thing. I should probably change that to was. I'm going to change that to was. Was a good thing, okay? Because it was at that time, okay? So we say that again. Change that wording. Seek, and he used this word here. Now, this right here, this word seek down here is zeteo. It's the verb form of the word translated zealous up here. If you do a study on it, you'll see they're related words. One's the verb form, one's the noun form of it. Now seek that you may abound unto the edifying. So you need to seek gifts and seek it for the purposes right now. Tongue speaker can edify. Because if we got a problem, we got in the first century, we got an assembly that most of them speak Greek, and they don't speak another language such as Latin, which would be pretty prominent in the Roman Empire. Then the preacher gets up and speaks in Greek, and the people that are in the assembly that don't speak any Greek, all they speak Latin, maybe some other language. And they're not going to be edified, so we need that tongue speaker. Today, we need a translator. That's what we need. Okay, does that make sense, what we're saying? Any question there? And when that translator comes in, or that tongue speaker comes in, he would be a translator, basically. He would then cause people to be edified. So his gift now is going to edify if it's used right. Right? The church is frequently depicted as a house. Let's come back to the church. And they're frequently depicted as a house. Each member is a shaped stone lithos, okay, in the building. The gospel shapes each member of stone by converting us for service, from service of Satan to service to God. So it does that. Right? Any questions? This word to build up is from two words here, and oikos and then dome, and it's very interesting. Russian is a language. It's a Hellenic language. It's Greek-based language, and dome is the word for house, moi dome, and moi is just like the Greek word my. My dome is my house in Russian. And so that's my house. And so this is a house, and it's two words for a house. And one of them is the shape of the house, the dome. So you're building up that domed house. And I think these people, and some of the huts probably were dome-shaped huts that people lived in, and the common people. Now, the rich people would have other houses that would be built of other materials. And so right here, this would, you're going to build that thing up. Can you imagine watching someone build their house? And that's the figure here for building your house up. So our purpose ought to be to edify or build up the church. Right? We may abound unto it. So be zealous to abound, have that zeal. So also you, since you're zealous of spiritual gifts, I'll put the word gifts in italics, seek that you may abound, be zealous, seek, may abound unto the edifying of the church. So you want spiritual gifts, use them, seek them, use them, but use them to build the church up. And again, it shouldn't be about elevating ourselves. Questions? We're getting pretty close to the end of it. I think what we'll do with this is we'll call a halt to and start with verse 13 next week, if that's all right for everybody. Any questions? This kind of is like a new trust or a new thought here. I've treated it like a new paragraph here. Okay. So if there are no questions, I'm going to stop recording.